Hey y'all, welcome to a new video. So I'm still reminiscing on 2025 and what made it a good year versus what really just ground my gears in 2025. And at this point, I am also reflecting on my spinal surgery. So I thought I would sit down, put on my favorite makeup of the year, and fill you all in on what exactly happened, how I'm feeling, and the Russian novel that was my time in and out of the hospital. So we're gonna put on this little basket of makeup. I realize there's a couple things I forgot, but that's okay. It's okay. Ulla Henriksen, this is the orange creamsicle vibe. So if you missed this video, I went into depth about my scoliosis and how my spine has really affected my life. I'm using the Tom Ford Foundation, and it's not been easy. It really hasn't. It's been a rough go, especially the last 5 years as I have gotten older and my spine has started to kind of cave in on itself. It's been causing a lot of pain, a lot of disruption to my normal activities, and even basic stuff like going to the grocery store, going for a walk, spending time with friends. I have had to, did I just not notice that this has a fragrance? Something has a fragrance and it's not this. Maybe I need to wash my makeup brushes. She has been saying for the last 4 months. All right, I'm just gonna put a little bit of more of this on because I've got it on my hand. I don't wanna waste it. So back to the spine. I have been dealing with a lot of pain. Standing, walking, even sitting has been painful. And it started when I was working retail. I started getting this horrible pain going down my leg. I thought it was my IT bands because I've always had problems with those. It wasn't. It was my spine compressing my L5 nerve. So leading up to this surgery, I had another procedure, CL concealer. I had another procedure called a laminectomy where they went in and shaved down a little bit of that L5 disc to relieve the pressure. And it worked for a very short period of time. The pain came back almost right away. So I did physical therapy and I started working out, going to the gym and swimming. And yeah, I started feeling better, but I was still in a lot of pain by the end of the day. Coming to the conclusion that injections of lidocaine steroids were not going to be a permanent solution. They were a temporary relief, but they were not going to be the permanent solution that I needed. So I talked to a doctor and he's like, yeah, I think we need to do this this T10 to ilium. So the T10 vertebrae is right around where the bra strap sits. It's between the shoulder blades, about halfway up the thoracic spine. I'm gonna use, this is really old, but I've been using it lately. What brush am I using this with? I'm gonna go in with a small little rougher brush. This has been helping me fill in these bits of hairline. I've been using basically Rogaine to help regrow some of this that I've lost because of thyroid issues, autoimmune conditions, my celiacs, all of that stuff. So surgery, it happened. I had this massive spinal fusion. I went into the operating room, they wheeled me in, and let me tell you, I was crying. I was so nervous. I was so scared. I just did not know. What was scarier than the known was the unknown. Like, yeah, they're gonna fuse my spine. Okay, what does that mean as far as my mobility? What does that mean as far as my flexibility? Am I gonna be able to sit up? Am I gonna be able to stand? Am I going to be able to feed my cats? Am I going to be able to load the dishwasher? Because I'm a pretty independent person and I don't like asking for help. This is the Make Beauty eyebrow tint and the Merit eyebrow pencil, the 1990 brow pencil. So I was really scared, really nervous, didn't have a whole lot of frame of reference. I joined a group on Facebook for people who've had surgery. And let me tell you, those groups can get really toxic really fast. I remember posting a question about something and someone responded with a like, well, that's a stupid question. And I'm like, this is a support group. Isn't support supposed to be answering questions and making people who are having this surgery feel heard and seen? Not necessarily the healthiest place to go for advice leading up to something like this. But went into surgery, woke up. I seem to remember waking up numerous hours later. I don't understand nurses. Like, they go into a profession where their job is to help and comfort. And instead, they get annoyed, frustrated, irritated. Like, I had a lot of questions. I also needed to know when I was getting my next dose of pain meds. They originally had me on what's called a PCP machine. I'm going to go in with the e.l.f. contour. This is gorgeous. So a PCP machine, I don't remember what it stands for, but they have a constant pain med drip, and then they give you a like little button where you can get a bolus dose every hour. Well, the problem I had was if I fell asleep for 3 hours, I would wake up in a lot of pain. That was a lot of product because I hadn't had that bolus dose since before I fell asleep because I wasn't awake to trigger the button. And I brought this up with my doctor the next day, and they changed my medication. They changed my medication delivery system. Instead, they put me on an every 4-hour medication dose that the nurses would come in and give me. But that first night, I was in a lot of pain. I remember one of the nurses coming in the next morning for shift change, and as she was logging onto the computer, we're going to go in. This is the Merit Solo Shadow in Studio. It's been my absolute favorite eyeshadow product this year. As she was logging into the computer to check my my information, I heard my nurse from the previous night stop at my door and say, "Have fun with that one. I had her last night." As if to say, like, I was a terrible patient, I was demanding, I was rude, when I just needed my meds. I needed to know when my next dose of pain meds was coming because I literally had hardware fused into my spine. You know, you don't treat people like that when they're at their most vulnerable and in the most pain. I just don't understand it. I also had some really crappy nurses in the emergency room, but we'll get there. All right, so Merit Solo Shadow. I think I also need to use some shadows from this. This is the Danessa Myricks Lightwork Volume 7 palette. This was my birthday gift this year, and I am so in love with this palette. I know it's not available anymore, and I am sorry. I have seen it for sale on a couple resale sites, but oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. What am I going to do? I want to do something simple. I think I'm just gonna go in with this sheer topper. Oh yeah, yeah. That'll do the trick. So once they got my pain meds sorted, I was in better shape, but I was still in a lot of pain. So the next few days go by, they eventually take the drains out, they take out all of the other stuff. Surgery was on a Monday morning. They sent me to a rehab Friday. So 4 days post-surgery. Do I have a powder blush? Yes, I do. So I'm gonna go in with RMS. This is Crystal Slipper, and then we're gonna go on top with some of these blushes from Hannah Louise Poston because they're amazing. So they sent me to a rehab, and I don't know if y'all have ever had this experience where you walk in or you enter a space and something feels off. You're just getting weird energy, weird vibes. Things just don't feel good. It doesn't feel like the right space. They get me into a room. I arrived via ambulance. They got me into my room, and of course, I was in pain. I was on meds. I fell sound asleep for a while. I don't know how many hours I was asleep, but I was asleep. I woke up several hours later and I was hungry. I was really hungry. And she says to me, well, you missed dinner because dinner was not timed according to patient need somewhere. So this nurse says to me, well, I'll go to the kitchen and see if I can find you something. She brings me back a ham sandwich on regular wheat/white bread. I have celiac disease. I can't eat that. And even in my stupor between meds and everything else that was going on, I told this person, I can't eat that. I don't remember what they ended up bringing me. Probably Fruit Cups and Cheerios because that's what I was eating in the hospital. So later that night, there was an issue with getting myself to the bathroom and the policy surrounding patients getting out of bed from the facility. And that was when I said, you know what? You've already tried to gluten me, which for me, when I get glutened, it's akin to getting poisoned. If you've ever had a combination of food poisoning and the stomach flu, that's what I experience when I get glutened, and it sucks. The last couple times I've been glutened, I've had to go to the emergency room. It's bad. All right, we've got the RMS. Let's go into oyster fig and possibly the Nimia. I'll tell you, these blushes have just made my year. They excited me. They gave my brain like all of the dopamine and the serotonin, and oh yeah. I'm gonna use this kind of chunky guy with them. This is a Refer 17. And I'm going straight into oyster fig because that is my favorite. It's beautiful, it's grungy, yummy. So yeah, I told the rehab that I was leaving even though it was against medical advice. I did not care. I called my mom, who came and picked me up. She brought me home and we tried to figure out what to do next because there was no way that I was going to be safe being home 4 days after this major surgery. I mean, it was great to be home. It was great to love on my cats and be in my space, but it was not accessible given everything that I needed help with. And I did not think that I could just walk into a hospital and be like, yo, I just had spinal surgery, I need to be admitted. That did not sound plausible, feasible. And even the short drive from the rehab to my mom's house in the passenger seat of a car, incredibly painful. So we called 911, we called an ambulance, and they took me to a local ER. Now, I gotta say, the food at Ohio State University's hospital system is terrible. They claim they offer world-class care, and then they feed you powdered potatoes, instant egg, you know, basically stuff from a can, canned vegetables, chicken that was cooked in like this 16th, 17th century. It is definitely dead and dry and all kinds of no. So I barely had a meal. And I remembered the food at another hospital system was really good. It was like, okay, maybe if I go to their ER, they will admit me and I can actually get a good meal. That was my thinking. And it didn't happen. They called my doctor and my doctor was like, yeah, no, we need to bring her back to Ohio State. We need to bring her to the Brain and Spine Hospital. So back into an ambulance I went. That was my third ambulance in one day, making up for never riding in an ambulance until I was in my 40s. Oh, for crying on the toilet, as one of my roommates used to say. Eyeliner? Sure. So after an ordeal with this horrendous nurse at the emergency room, they took me back to OSU. They put me in a post-surgical wing, but they didn't put me back in the Brain and Spine Center because they didn't have a room. I had a roommate. She was lovely. She was just very quiet and chill, and I was not quiet and chill. I was a hot mess. At one point, I was standing in my room. I was butt naked, trying to put on clothes without being able to like bend over at all. And this nurse, oh, bless her heart, she was so sweet. She came in and the first thing she said was, okay, how can I help? And I burst into tears. It's like, I need help getting dressed. I need help cleaning up the mess on the floor. And she called housekeeping and she helped me get dressed again and spent 45 minutes helping me assemble my back brace. Because the team that put it together came into my room and showed me day after my surgery. I didn't remember anything. Like, that is a terrible time to show somebody how to operate their medical equipment, is right after surgery, because your brain is goo. I spent the next week in the hospital getting better progressively. I started getting antsy. I started getting bored. I had a quote fall. I went to sit down on the edge of my bed because I wanted to use my side table and I wanted to paint. I just wanted to paint. I wanted to sit down with my watercolors and listen to my audiobook and let my brain wander. And I sat down on the edge of the bed and the bed propelled me onto the floor and I went plop. And I couldn't get myself up. I had to call the nurses station, and before I knew it, there were like 10 people in my room. 3 of them helped me get up and get me into bed. I did not realize the next day that they had me on a bed alarm. So it's a pad that they put on the mattress, and if you get out of bed, it goes off and it alerts people and they're like, oh crap, this person who fell yesterday is getting out of bed on their own. You shouldn't do it. You shouldn't do it. It's just not advisable. So Friday, October 3rd was the beginning of homecoming weekend. And that meant that there were football games and campus was going to be swamped. And I just decided I wanted to go home. And they needed me to do things before they would release me. I got them done. And I took an Uber home. I Ubered home. I'm going to use some of the CL filter and protect powder. I took an Uber home and this driver was so sweet. She got out of the car. She helped me get my bags and everything into the house because I was using a walker. I couldn't stand up on my own at that point without a walker. But she was such a sweetheart. And all of the people who just out of the goodness of their heart saw somebody and they're like, yeah, no, this person needs help, just stayed with me. That kindness just really resonated. I want more of that highlight. want more of that highlight. I'm just going to go in with my fingers. So getting back home was weird. It was awkward. I had been taught how to move, how to get myself in and out of bed. I was told that I could shower eventually, but I had to wait for my in-home healthcare, which I never got. I contacted multiple companies about getting an in-home health aid, and it never came. It never arrived. I never got a phone call about an appointment or like even being admitted to an inpatient facility. Didn't happen. But fortunately, being independent and being stubborn, that right there is the important word, stubborn, I refused to be a lump. I got up and I did stuff. Eventually, I started filming again. I started painting. I really missed ceramics. I'm getting back into ceramics tomorrow. I'm so excited. So things have slowly been getting back to normal, if there is such a thing as normal. But this week I have been out running errands, living my life without my brace. I feel stronger. I feel more stable. I went out Christmas shopping a couple of weeks ago and I was waiting in line at a bookstore and I realized that I could stand on both my legs and distribute my weight evenly. That has never been something I've been able to do because of the curve in my spine. My hips have always been off, so my left leg has always been longer than my right leg, and it's just been not great. But I realized that I was in much better shape than I thought I was. For lips, we have 2 of these Lisa Eldridge melting balms. One of these is in Sweet Fig. I think this is the one I'm going to use because it just goes better with this cooler toned cheek look. And then Meet Cute, which is a lovely beige. So that is Sweet Fig and that is Meet Cute. They're both beautiful. Do I want to take the Ulla Henriksen off? I really don't. I really don't. So we're just going in with Sweet Fig. It is almost the same shade as my lips. A little more deep, a little more berry, a little bit more brown. And that is how much I have left. This was my birthday lipstick to myself last year. And by last year, I mean 2024. All right, the last thing we have is mascara. I got a handful of comments on my last video where I was talking about the surgery and just going in on how scared I was. And I got so many nice comments. So many people saying, I'm thinking of you, I'm praying for you. That stuff really resonates and it touches me. And I'm really grateful for the friends, the family, the community that I have both online and in person. I don't think my recovery would have gone as well without that help. Also, like basic delivery services, DoorDash, getting groceries delivered. But yeah, things like that just make life easier. My mom, we have our differences. There are times that we don't always get along. But she really showed up and showed out with this surgery. She really did. She bent over backwards to make sure that I was taken care of. And in a lot of ways, I think it bonded us even closer than we already are. I am going to show some x-rays here. I'll put the before and after so y'all can see the difference. Just content warning, if you're sensitive about that stuff, you might want to cut it off here. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing this time with me. I really do appreciate it. My mascara is still wet and I can feel it transferring to my bottom lashes. Let's fix that. I love this mascara, but she do get clumpy. And she gets spidery. And I don't hate it, but another story time. So that is everything as of right now. I have to wear a bone growth stimulator for 2 hours every day, and it emits this really high-pitched noise, so I can't film while I'm wearing it. I can't really edit while I'm wearing it, and I have really come to resent it. But it's helping my bones grow, so that's a big plus. So thank you so much for all of the support and the kindness and the kind words. I greatly appreciate it. I hope you are taking care of yourselves so you can take care of each other, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye, friends.